Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am your host, Tracy Stuckrath. I am all alone today, which is good. I'm excited about that. And let me make sure my settings are where's my mouse? Are all good here. Um, I hope everybody's having a great day so far. And what I wanted to talk about today was the fact that actually today is Ash Wednesday, which is the start of Lent for anyone who does not know that, and which is the Catholic season of Lent, which is a time of prayer, fasting, and giving back to our greater community. So, but what I wanted to talk about today with it was the religious holidays that are actually upon us during the spring. We just had a bunch of them during Christmas, or not during Christmas, during December, a wide variety of holidays, but we also have some coming up here in the spring. Today being the first one, Ash Wednesday and Lent. So, really, when I want to talk about these is about what that means when we're catering for attendees during this time. And it really does become it's not a challenge, but it's an opportunity to be creative with what you're serving and also making sure that people are getting what they need. It is not a Americans with Disabilities Act or right or decision on what we're serving, but it is a religious-based practice that we need to adhere to and ensure that we're recognizing and respecting the wishes of those people who are eating with us. So a little bit about Lent. As I said, it is the beginning of the Christian season of that, and today is Ash Wednesday. And part of that, it is a 40-day season, which ends 3 days before Easter on Thursday, April 6th. So we've got 6 weeks of individuals who will be observing Lent. And what that means is that they will be practicing self-control through fasting. They will be abstaining from indulgences, having and then having inner conversions of heart as they seek to follow Christ's will more faithfully. But what that means for us as meeting planners is, especially around food and beverage, is on today and Good Friday, the beginning and the end of Lent, the bookends of Lent, as well as every Friday in between there, we need to understand what Christians can and cannot eat during that time frame. The one big idea or the one big concept of that is fasting from and abstaining from meat. And so you will see on a couple of social media posts that I did today that the can't have list on Ash Wednesday today, Good Friday, and Fridays throughout are that they have to abstain from meat. And the meat actually includes chicken, beef, deer, pork, lamb, goat, buffalo, any animal that's bleeding. Okay. And so we need to make sure that when we're serving dishes on Fridays if we have an event during those days, we need to make sure that our food is free of the meat from those animals, as well as any byproducts from them. Well, actually, there's a little caveat to that. So it's the meat from that, right? So, but we can't have beef broth. We can't have chicken broth, right? We need to make sure that that is missing. What they can have during those days are fish and shellfish, eggs, fruits and vegetables, dairy products. So I did say a second ago that they have to abstain from the products, but that's not true. They can actually have the milk and the butter and the ice cream, things like that, but not the meats from it. And they can also have any grains. So it does open, I think the variety of food is there with fish and shellfish, but I do have to say we have to watch individuals who have shellfish allergies or fish allergies. We want to make sure that they are their safety comes first as well in that. But I recommend, serving an entire, serving a meal that is seafood based on a Friday if you're serving lunch on a Friday. But I do have to call out my friend Margaret, Rainmaker Sales and Marketing, who commented on my post on Instagram. She said she once hosted a wedding on Good Friday, and I'm going to read this here. And the bride and groom didn't think that their guests would care about no meat on Friday. And I'm going to switch my glasses out so I can see a little bit better. Boy, did they miss what their guests would want and need. Margaret said most of their stations weren't touched, and what was their decision became the problem of the caterer. Be informed and ask good questions. That's a really good point that Margaret brings up, and kind of counters what I just said about making sure that you serve fish and shellfish during that meal. Maybe not. Maybe you have those options, but you need to have an option of meat, and you have to have the option of fish or shellfish available for your attendees at that event. And that actually reminds me of an event years ago back in Georgia. And it was a 3-day conference for meetings industry organization. The event started on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and it was ending on Friday. Well, on the registration form, they only asked individuals if you were vegetarian. I don't even remember if they asked if they were vegan, because this is probably 10, 15 years ago, but asked if they were vegetarian. And when a couple of attendees said, hey, what are you going to be serving at lunch on Friday? Because we can't have meat. They said, well, you have to be vegetarian. They weren't actually going to provide an option. But after quite a few people actually wrote in and said something, they actually added a fish option to that meal on Friday, so that it wasn't just either you eat the beef or you eat the vegetarian. They added that fish option for some individuals, which is a nice touch. And some people are going to say, well, no, just like that bride and groom said, no, we're just going to serve, no meat at all, right? And didn't give them the option, or didn't think about their attendees wanting something besides fish to eat. So, because not everybody's following the same dietary practices across the board. And so it is, if you can and you do have the budget to serve a dual course, especially a buffet, make sure that you've got, during Lent on a Friday, make sure you've got a fish and a beef option for those individuals. Now, and I did get a question from a friend of mine on my post on Facebook as well, is that when I first put it, it's like, this is what individuals following Lent must abstain during Lent, but it is only on Fridays. So they can eat everything that they normally eat during the middle of the week, but on Fridays they have to abstain from the no meat option. So, and the other part about that too is that on those, actually it's on Good Friday and and Ash Wednesday too, is that it's one full meal and then 2 smaller meals. So they're actually reducing how much they're eating. It's a little bit of a fast. So they're reducing how much they're eating, and they're not eating 2 or 3 full meals, right? They're snacking throughout. As I did say, this is a 40-day process, 40-day celebration or observance, and it goes in through April 6th officially, but then Good Friday is on the 7th. So paying attention to that. If you have an event happening and you haven't done your event registration forms yet, I definitely suggest that, one, you're asking individuals about their dietary requests. I really do want you to ask that all the time. Do you have any dietary needs that we need to consider and provide for while you're at our event? But I want you to pay attention to those lists or those requests now. That you might be getting a lot more vegetarian and vegan selections, because some people might be for Lent observing vegan or vegetarian instead. Especially if you haven't published the menu, right? You could, that might be your only option. But if you can publish the menu, or you can make note in your event registration FAQs saying, hey, we do realize this is happening during Lent. On Friday, our meals will include a fish and shellfish option, or, such address it. Make sure that that you're recognizing it. You don't have to ask them specifically if you don't want to in the event registration form, but do make note of it when somebody is booking their registration, so that you are being transparent, that you do recognize that it is happening. I would also ask or suggest too, when you are asking, I'm getting my words jumbled here. When you are asking about dietary restrictions, add some of the terminology or the foods that people are avoiding during Lent to help streamline what you're going to maybe order. So say you're saying, I don't eat gluten or dairy, add chicken and beef on there, and alcohol or whatever. Make sure you put those categories in there, because it might actually draw out those individuals without asking them, hey, are you following Lent? Right? So asking those additional questions, and just do it during Lent. You don't have to do it all the time if you don't want, but also know that there are people who are allergic to mammals. Check out my podcast, came out 2 weeks ago, I believe, on the alpha-gal syndrome, which is a meat allergy. So I actually recommend keeping the meat question in there under allergies all the time because of that. I actually did a stat I posted on Instagram yesterday. There are 10 million Americans with the alpha-gal syndrome. So they can't have anything from a mammal. So I think it's definitely worth keeping up there. And let's see, serving food and beverage. So I've talked about adding questions to your registration form, making sure that you're paying attention to the answers, because they might actually be requesting different things that you might not normally think of during this time frame. And thinking about your menus. Make sure that you always have a fish or shellfish option on Fridays, if you've got an event happening on Friday. Two other things. Okay, so that is Lent. That is happening the next 6 weeks from today through April 6th. April 7th is Good Friday. But happening also during that time frame is Ramadan and Passover. So Ramadan starts earlier, and it is March 22nd through April 21st. And so that is definitely over the dates of Passover, or I'm sorry, over what am I talking about? Lent. And so there's some other dietary restrictions that you might actually have to pay attention to during that as well. And I know last year I did an event that was over Ramadan and Passover, which is the Jewish holiday. And Passover this year is April 5th through 23rd. So I'm going to put in the comments here. Let's see. Lent is February 22nd to April 6th. Or I'm going to say 7th, 2023. And then, let's see. Okay, Lent is April 22nd. And then we've got Ramadan. Ramadan is, I've got it up here. I'm just going to copy and paste it. That makes it easier. March 22nd through April 21st. And so they're definitely crossing over. And Passover is, Passover is April 5th through April 13th. So there are days that you could potentially have individuals attending your event that follow all three of these different religious-based practices. Probably not there's not one person following all of them, but you might. But definitely making sure that you've got those in your calendar. So when you're paying attention, understanding what the dietary needs of those people or those individuals are. So Ramadan, when you're doing that, let's see, we need to understand what their practices are. So definitely asking the questions of what they are going to be following. And they do have fasting during that time. It is I'm going to read this directly from a website here from Britannica, the 9th month of the Muslim calendar. And during Ramadan, there is fasting. So we need to make sure that we are paying attention to what time of day and what we're serving them with that. So I'm trying to do nothing. Anyways, so I really did want to focus on Lent this week, and because it's happening, and definitely paying attention to what your attendees' dietary needs are, religious-based ones, in the next couple of weeks. So again, as I posted in the comments there on Facebook and YouTube, that Lent is February 22nd to April 7th. Ramadan is March 22nd through April 21st. And Passover is April 5th through April 13th. So definitely making sure that you've got all of those on your calendar. So a couple of other things that have come up note lately in the food and beverage world is there's been, unfortunately, a few deaths due to food allergies in the last couple of weeks. And then one I posted about that happened last fall, and the parents of that college student are now suing the university for wrongful death. And a couple of these, I think all of the incidences actually happened outside of the home. The college student was eating in the cafeteria at school, and he was eating in an area that was known to be the allergen sensitive area of the school cafeteria. And he had a fish allergy, and what he chose to eat said grilled chicken, steamed broccoli, and some roasted potatoes. He ate that, and underneath that on the label, and this label was a big TV monitor like my screen here, and it said contains no allergens. He died from eating that meal. And so there was the parents are suing the university for wrongful death. There's going to be lots of investigation about how this happened, but that's an incident of cross-contamination. And one of the things, or cross-contact, and one of the things that I bring up a lot of times is the labeling of the food and beverage. You've got somebody in the back of the house who's preparing it, but typically in a hotel environment or a convention center environment, the staff that works the front of the house are the ones making the labeling. So my question on that, even in this school cafeteria, is who made that label? I learned from my friend Amelia Eckes years ago that if you make the food, you make the label, right? If the chef, whatever chef makes the food, makes the label, or makes sure that chef proofs the label that is being made. And so I definitely think that there was some 100% miscommunication on what was made in that food, or there was an accident of cross contact. But it really does pay attention to, or bring attention to, the fact that we have a lot of opportunity for cross contact. But if you've got a section of a cafeteria or a buffet line that says this is the allergen-free station, or this is the gluten-free station, or such, you need to make sure that extra precautions are being made so that does not happen. The other one was a young lady who had actually gone to her school dance, and she ate some brownies, and I don't know the details of it are not out yet, but the brownies actually had nuts in it, and she died of anaphylaxis from that as well. So it really, and there were two other deaths as well. And it's very heartbreaking for the food allergic community. It's heartbreaking for me to even think about this, because this is what I teach, and how does it happen? But we need to be really transparent with what we're doing and what we're serving. And we need to ask the right questions of our catering partners. In my course, Every Meal Matters, that is happening right now, I've got 9 students in that course going through it, this round of it. And a couple of them are really scared now. They don't trust they don't want to trust their catering partners anymore because they're not in the kitchen. And so they're really putting together adding questions to their RFPs to ask the questions about what is going on in the kitchen, because you and I as meeting planners are not going to be in the kitchen following the chef and making sure everything is done properly, right? But what questions can you come up with to actually help, ascertain the steps that are taken in the back of the house, as well as in the front of the house, right? Do the front of the house servers know to keep spoons separate? How are you managing those buffet lines? How are you going to distribute the food and beverage to the individuals who have food allergies? In my course, I've had a couple of guest speakers for the students, and one of them was an attorney, and she was saying, as a meeting planner, because I've actually been teaching, ask, about the labeling, ask about EpiPens, ask your attendees if they carry EpiPens. And she actually doesn't recommend asking about EpiPens specifically, saying, do ask the question, do you have a food allergy? And then follow up that question, is there anything else that you need us to know about your food allergy? And hopefully that person's going to say, hey, I carry an EpiPen, or, just to ensure their safety. So you can say, hey, what do we need to know about your food allergy to ensure your safety at this event? Right? Because you might actually be putting a little bit more onus on yourself if if you're asking about if the EpiPen specifically. But it's really been enlightening to listen to these guest speakers talk about the different aspects of, managing dietary restrictions. Chef Murray Hall was a guest, and he was talking about how he, starts all of his menu designs plant forward, and then avoiding allergens as well, top allergens as well, so that he can serve without having to make major changes at the last minute or on the fly. He adds the allergens on as necessary, during that event, and he adds the animal-based proteins on as well, so that that is the accompaniment to the rest of the plant-based menu, right? It's been really, the class has been going really well, but I wanted to point out that if you're a catering partner, if you're a catering person and you're serving guests, meeting planners really need your help. Whether you're a salesperson, whether you're in the kitchen, whether you're the banquet captain, we need your help in understanding what's going on in the kitchen, right? And how food is being served, how food is being prepared. And actually, that brings a story to light from an event I did a couple of years ago. I was the culinary concierge for the event, and I had gone through and I labeled all of the menu items that we were serving at breakfast and lunch and in the evening reception. And I was asking questions about, how is it being served? And there was one item, and it was, I don't remember what it was, but on the description of it, it did not say that it was served on bread. But then when it's out on the buffet at the event, it was served on a piece of bruschetta, on a piece of toast. And I'm like, why was this not disclosed during that description of that, especially when we were asking questions? I said, oh, this is gluten-free. And they said, yes, it's gluten-free. Well, they forgot to say that it was served on bread. And actually, that happened at an event I did last April, a year ago. On the menu description, it does not say that it's served on bread or toast. So as a culinary partner, it's really important to make sure that you're transparent with how not only you're serving food, but also, or not only what's in the food, but how you're serving the food. And I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine who works with a lot of caterers to design menus and help execute events. And she is working with a new app and helping that caterer input all of their menus into the system, including all of the allergens. And this is exactly what I teach, and this is exactly what I consult on with hotels and catering companies, is like inputting that information in there so you can easily identify your menu items for that event planner that says, hey, what do you've got gluten-free? What do you have dairy-free? It's really important so that you're more knowledgeable. And then what you're selling, you can upsell something. You know, the opportunity to say, hey, by the way, we've got these gluten-free vegan options. We've got these gluten-free options. We've got these fish-free, gluten-free options, right? Knowing what's in your menu allows your sales team and your banquet team to be able to communicate the necessary information about those foods. This is a huge opportunity for you to shine a light on your expertise, your elevated food offerings, and your elevated level of service for your guests that have different dietary restrictions. So I have started out talking about Lent here, and it really is a good opportunity to really pay attention to what's in your food. And actually, that reminds me of another story of someone. I went to lunch with somebody who is Jewish, and this was quite a few years ago, and I had interned for her years before. And we were out to dinner in Washington, D.C. While we were working a show. And I told the waiter, my food allergies. And then she started asking questions about how the steak was prepared. Did it have butter on it? Did it have fish sauce on it, or any kind of things like that? So somebody who follows a religious-based practice, the dietary restrictions around that, they have the exact same questions, almost identical to those individuals with food allergies, because they do want to know how the food is prepared. So you're going to reach a large gamut of individuals who need to ask questions about their food, but it also gives you an opportunity to sell to a whole new market. Because if you understand what items that you have that follow the kosher practices, might not be certified kosher or, kosher certified, but they follow the practices of no dairy and meat together, or no shellfish, you can actually upsell what you've got on your menu items. So I started out talking about religion and food, and we're going to end here with religion and food. But it's all about the transparency of what we're serving and how we can create a better experience for those we are feeding. So thank you to everyone who is listening. And for those who are celebrating Lent, warm wishes to you over the next 6 weeks. I hope you eat safely, and I hope you eat deliciously. And I've got 4 people on here watching. If you've got any comments before I leave, questions, let me know. I was going to wrap it up here, but if any of you've got questions, let me know. Next week is more. I'm going to stay on here for 1 second. Oh, we've got a comment here. Lynn says, thank you very much. Lynn, thank you so much for piping in. I appreciate that, joining me here. Next week is March, and we are going to be celebrating Women's History Month. I see how I changed the words from history to herstory. So I will be highlighting 10 women who are doing really cool things in food and beverage. Let me know who you want, if you've got anybody you want me to talk to. But I'm wrapping up that list of people, and I'm excited to bring you those women that I'm going to be talking to. So thank you. Stay tuned next week for Women's History Month. And until then, stay safe and eat well. Have a great day.